Judicial Watch, and more emails from Hillary Clinton, and a local story about a stadium and a county at odds with each other. Welcome to the Mike Broomhead Show.
Well, I got a message, I got a song. Can I get a witness? Tell me what's going on. I show the people I've been away.
All right, today on the show, we're going to discuss the national elections, of course, Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton. Who made the most mistakes? Right now, it seems to be which one talks first. We're going to get to that later on in the show. And we're going to talk about the Diamondbacks in the city of Phoenix, the county of Maricopa, and the battle with the county. We'll do all that in a few minutes, but we start every show with the sweep. Let's start off with Donald Trump. Donald Trump this week made a statement that I don't know what, I know it wasn't a smart thing to say, but he didn't threaten anybody's life. I'm not a Trump surrogate. Everyone knows I will criticize Donald Trump whenever I think it's necessary. He has said some things in the past that I said he shouldn't have said. He was talking about the Second Amendment. And when he was talking about the Second Amendment, he said if Hillary gets to choose judges, this is what will happen. Watch this video, and you tell me if he's advocating for the death of Hillary Clinton.
Hillary wants to essentially abolish the Second Amendment. By the way, and if she gets to pick her judges, nothing you can do, folks. Although the Second Amendment people, maybe there is, I don't know.
So he starts off, Second Amendment, and he ends with the Second Amendment people. Was he making a joke? Possibly. Was it a stupid joke? Possibly. Was he advocating for the death of somebody? Give me a break. How in the world do you equate the two of those? Well, of course, Hillary Clinton is all over this. Hillary Clinton, here's her rebuttal at another rally, and of course they're fundraising and everything else. Here's what Hillary Clinton had to say about Donald Trump's comments.
Words matter, my friends. And if you are running to be president or you are president of the United States, words can have tremendous consequences. Yesterday, we witnessed the latest in a long line of casual comments from Donald Trump that cross the line.
Hillary Clinton, in that cut, said words matter. I agree, words matter. And at this point, Hillary, what difference does it make? That's really what I want to know. Remember that testimony from Hillary Clinton when she was talking about Benghazi, when they told the family members of those 4 dead Americans that they were going to get the person that made that video that caused the riot, that caused the attack, that caused the death of those 4 people. They even arrested the guy that made the video. Well, if words matter, how come her words don't matter? She also said earlier in the week that she may have short-circuited last week when she talked to Chris Wallace on Fox News and didn't answer a question. This is such a convoluted bunch of coverage by the media, which I want to talk about a little bit later because it really isn't a fair assessment of what's happened. Let's talk about something serious that happened with Donald Trump. 50 Republicans that were connected to national security, names you'd probably never heard of. I read the list of the 50 members. I knew 3 names on the list, saying that Trump lacks character and values and experience to be president and would put the country's national security at risk. They said he would be the most reckless president in American history. Now, Donald Trump said they're nothing more than failed Washington elite. And I'll tell you what, that mantra has worked for him so far. So far, he has won over the American people. I cannot figure out why they are continuing to do this. Does any of them really believe that Hillary Clinton is a better option as president than Donald Trump? Because those are the 2 choices right now. Donald Trump was not my first choice, and there I think a lot of Americans are going to stay home. They say 1 in 5 registered Republicans want Donald Trump to drop out. And this is a Reuters poll. I got to tell you, I don't believe that 20% of Republicans want Donald Trump out of the race. And what about the other side? Why aren't they going after the other side with how many people in the Democratic Party don't trust Hillary Clinton? Now, 2 parents, this is important about Hillary Clinton, listen to this. 2 parents from Benghazi, Patricia Smith and Charles Woods, both whose sons died in Benghazi, are suing Hillary Clinton in federal court for defamation because they lied about her and wrongful death and the death of their children. They said her private email server contributed to the Benghazi attacks. So those things right there are what's more serious, not some ridiculous comment about the Second Amendment at a rally by Donald Trump. And finally, the serial shooter in the city of Phoenix. 9 incidents have happened. We have got 7 murders have been linked. There have been conflicting reports. It's interesting now as the Phoenix police have released a little bit more information this week in some of the police reports of the shootings. Even the witnesses and the victims weren't able to agree on what they saw. And if you think about that moment, if you were just minding your own business in your driveway and you get shot at, can you imagine being able to keep your thoughts about you to get a description of the person that was doing it, or are you just going to try to scramble for cover? So the police have narrowed this down. They say it's a young Hispanic man who has access to 2 luxury cars. One would be either a Cadillac or a Lincoln, that body style. The other is a BMW, late 90s, early 2000s, 5 Series BMW. They also say they've got bullet casing forensic links at sites. So it is really now up to the public. Someone out there in the city of Phoenix knows who this shooter is, because people like this don't keep their mouths shut. And someone's got to come forward. There has been a very big reward that's been offered through silent witness. Let's just hope we can get these neighborhoods in the city of Phoenix back to where they were. So what we're going to do now is in just a moment, we're going to talk about the Diamondbacks and their battle with Maricopa County. We're also going to talk about Hillary Clinton and what's going on behind the scenes, some things you may not know or haven't heard in the media. More email scandal with Hillary Clinton. That's coming up in a moment. Don't forget, follow us on all the social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook. You can also find us on Instagram, or go to the AZTV page there. You can find us there. We'll be back here in a moment with our segment about Hillary Clinton and what you really need to know. You know, in this election cycle, like many others, we all have our opinions about how the media does coverage. But you can take a look at what's going on in the media this week. It is just a picture, just a microcosm of how this election cycle is going to run. I think Donald Trump needs to do a much better job of how he says things, because he knows the deck is stacked against him. He has said so many questionable things that they are just waiting for him to say something else. So anything he does is going to be inflated even more than it would just because it's Donald Trump. CNN loves Donald Trump because he drives ratings. They're not saying nice things about him necessarily, but they're talking about him all the time. If you look at coverage, and you can go back and look at George Stephanopoulos when he was talking about this incident with Hillary Clinton, there are a couple of different things we need to look at. And you tell me how off base I might be. I'd love for you to reach out to us via social media and tell me how wrong you think I am. Judicial Watch, which is a fantastic organization, finally through the Freedom of Information Act, has released a 55-page report. There were 41, I believe, there were over 40 emails that they found that were not part of the 55,000 pages that Hillary turned in, the 30,000 emails. She said she turned in all of her work-related emails. These are emails between Huma Abedin, her second in command when she was at the Justice or at the State Department, and the Hillary Clinton Foundation. There were big-time donors into the foundation that wanted positions in the State Department. They wanted to work in an embassy somewhere. They wanted to do jobs somewhere. And there are emails back and forth between these officials asking Huma to get a job for this billionaire that donated millions of dollars to the Clinton Foundation. Huma said, "We've sent him options. We're waiting for him to decide." This is selling favors. Hillary Clinton, as the Secretary of State, was getting donations to the tune of millions of dollars into her foundation in order for her to use her power as the Secretary of State to get people jobs. Doesn't matter where you stand politically. That's what she did. That's what the emails are saying. This is her second in command that was doing this. How is this not a front page story? Instead, what we have as a front page story is that Donald Trump says that Hillary Clinton and Second Amendment and things, it's ridiculous. How can that be a lead story over the corruption and collusion? The only person that benefited from, well, the briber did, but the person that benefited was Hillary Clinton. She was selling her power as Secretary of State to donors to her charity. She isn't even doing somebody else a favor. She's repaying. It's so obvious. If you remember back when the war started under George W. Bush, when they went into Iraq, his vice president, Dick Cheney, was connected with Halliburton. He was a big part of that company, Halliburton. He sold all of his stock when he left and became vice president of the United States. When the war started, The media said, here's your proof for blood for oil. All of Dick Cheney's getting rich, and so are all of his cronies at Halliburton. And Dick Cheney said, I sold all my stock at Halliburton. I've got no connection to them. And they said, oh, you've got connections. You're not kidding me. This is proof that this is happening with Hillary Clinton. She wants to be president, and people are going to ignore it. How about the fact that, you remember the guy, Omar Mateen, the shooter at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando? Hillary was in Kissimmee, Florida, doing a rally or town hall or whatever, and they always stage people. People are staged behind the speaker. So while the cameras are facing, if it's a veterans event, you have veterans seated or standing behind, wearing their uniforms or wearing the caps that they had on from their branch of the service. Well, in that crowd was the father of Omar Mateen. Right there. Was he placed there? Of course he was. Why? They want to show diversity. They're going to show people of different colors and ethnicities, so he was placed there. They said they had nothing to do with it. If Donald Trump had George Zimmerman at a rally, if Zimmerman showed up at a Trump rally, they would be connecting Trump directly to Zimmerman and the Second Amendment and everything else. All I'm saying is we ought to have fair coverage. Don't take my word for anything. Take my word for what it's worth. Do your own research. I encourage you to catch me lying about something, which I'm not doing. I'm giving you my opinion. But get your news sources out there from a multitude of places, because if you're going to go to CNN or MSNBC or even Fox News, you're going to get something that maybe is not quite right. All right, don't forget, reach out to us on social media. Would love to read your comments about this on all of our social media platforms. In a moment, we talk about the Diamondbacks and their fight with Maricopa County. Don't go away. One of the big issues when it comes to major cities is sports teams, big major sports franchises. And here in Arizona, we're not short on those either. We've got the Diamondbacks, we've got the Cardinals, we've got the Coyotes, we have got the Suns, who have been, obviously the legendary kind of franchise that have been here first. The Phoenix Suns put the city of Phoenix on the map when they played at the Madhouse on McDowell, which is the Coliseum downtown. But the big issue about stadiums, who's going to build them, who's going to fund them, should taxpayers do that? That's always been a battle. Obviously, in a perfect world, these are billion-dollar industries. Let the owners build their own stadiums. That would be the way it would be, except, do you think if they didn't build a stadium for the Cardinals, that the Cardinals wouldn't have gone somewhere else? The Rams have gone back to Los Angeles. San Diego Chargers are probably going to go to Los Angeles. The Oakland Raiders may be going to Las Vegas. But in Maricopa County, it's the county that has the stadium, which is Chase Field, where the Diamondbacks play. Well, the Diamondbacks contend that in their contract, they have upgrades that are supposed to be made, or what they would call repairs that would be made to the stadium. They want technology upgrades, they want a new scoreboard, they want to remodel some of the suites so that they're in better condition for season ticket holders. So they petitioned the city for the county for $23 million in upgrades. And they had been arguing with, we're finding out, the county on whether or not the county was responsible for that $23 million. The county came back and told the Diamondbacks, those are cosmetic. They are not upgrades or not repairs. They are cosmetic. If you want a new scoreboard, buy your own scoreboard. Well, there's two sides of the argument. There's an extra $50 million a year that the Diamondbacks are getting in a television deal that they didn't get a year or so ago. Well, they could fund their millions and millions of dollars of this if they wanted to with that. And I don't know that it's quite $50 million a year. It's maybe $20 million a year. They could fund their own stadium. But the fact is, what's in the contract? County Supervisor Andy Kunasik hand-delivered a letter to Derek Hall. Derek Hall gets into a heated argument with Kunasik, where Andy Kunasik went off and said that it's becoming a parasitic industry, talking about baseball, and that they should take their baseball team and go back to West Virginia. And it was a heated exchange that neither side denied. Now, in all fairness, we invited Supervisor Kunasik to come on the show today to talk about it. We wanted to find out from his perspective how it got to the level of such a heated exchange between Derek Hall and himself, and why he would call out the Diamondbacks owner specifically and tell him to take his team someplace else and get out of town. Is that the sentiment of everybody on the County Board of Supervisors, or is that one guy who's not running for re-election we wanted to ask Mr. Kunasek those questions and kind of get his perspective on it. And last minute, he decided he couldn't make it on the show. So I'm sorry that we weren't able to have him here. He said he'd be here, and then he wasn't able to make it. You can decide whether or not he couldn't make it or just decided it was time to not talk about this anymore. In steps the city of Phoenix. Now, Mayor Greg Stanton is all about sitting down with the Diamondbacks. He wrote a letter in rebuttal and said he was shocked to hear about the heated exchange and the letter from the County Board of Supervisors to Derek Hall and the Diamondbacks that they want to work a deal. Can the responsibility in the contract for that stadium be shifted to the city of Phoenix? Because what the city of Phoenix will do is create a tax district. They'll raise taxes in that part of the city in order to pay for the improvements that are needed or desired, whichever way you look at it, in the stadium. That's what it boils down to. What you believe about stadiums and sports teams is irrelevant when a contract is signed. We chronicled what happened in Glendale with the big breakup with the Coyotes. The Coyotes are going to end up somewhere else, and it really was a horrible breakup between those two, the sports franchise and the city. But it was the city of Glendale that signed on the dotted line for that horrible deal with the Coyotes. You can't fault the franchise for that. The same here. If it's in the contract, it's in the contract. And if it's not, it's not. How you feel about stadiums, I guess it depends. Right now, nobody's complaining about the Arizona Cardinals because they're winning. And they got a really good shot at getting to the Super Bowl, fingers crossed. But the Diamondbacks not playing very well. Winning solves a lot of problems. In the end, it's what's in the contract. I just wish Mr. Kunasek would have come on the show to explain to us exactly what was going on. We're going to reach out to the Diamondbacks and get more information on this in the coming weeks. All right, we appreciate you being here. We come back here with hashtag this, Broomheads Best, and tribute to the military. Don't go away. Welcome back. It's one of my favorite parts of the program. We call it From Arizona for America. It's our way to congratulate and thank the young men and women who have recently graduated from boot camp and are now serving in our country's military. So if you would this week, join me in honoring Airman David Lynn. He's a junior from Queen Creek High School in Queen Creek. Airman Nicholas Thomas from Mountain Ridge High School in Peoria. Airman First Class Brandon Christopher Cruz from Hamilton High School in Chandler. And Airman Dylan Jackson from Gilbert High School in Gilbert. For a full list of more of our friends and neighbors that are from Arizona for America, you can go to the Mike Broomhead page at AZTV.com. We'll be back here in a minute with Broomhead's Best and hashtag this. Don't go away. All right, it's time for the part of the show we love. It's called Broomhead's Best. Got to talk about the Olympics and Arizona ties. Do you realize that there are more than 80 athletes with Arizona ties in the Olympic Games? That's the largest group ever. And how about Michael Phelps, who will return to ASU to be the assistant swim coach when he retires for a second time? 21 gold medals in 4 Olympics. That is something else. And again, made a huge comeback. He's still got a couple of more events to go. He is the most decorated Olympian ever. Do you realize his 3 gold medals has him with more gold medals himself in this Olympics than the majority of nations that are competing at the Games? Now it's time for something that's burning up the internet. We call it hashtag this. Let's stay with Michael Phelps. We're calling it hashtag poking the bear. It has been making rounds everywhere. Chad LaClose, I think is how you pronounce his name. Actually, it's Chad wasn't close because he was the South African swimmer who was friends with Michael Phelps when Michael Phelps retired the first time, and it was a rivalry that went on between the two of them, and then it got ugly, and then it became personal, and now they're calling it the biggest rivalry in competitive swimming. Well, you don't think about swimming as being competitive where there would be one-on-one. You think about beating your own time. But there is rivalry here. The video of this guy dancing like he's Muhammad Ali in boxing and shadow boxing, and Michael Phelps has got his hoodie on, and he is just staring at the ground, and you can see the smoke coming out of this guy's ears. Then they get in the pool. Michael Phelps wins the gold medal. The other guy, LaClose or wasn't close, I didn't even get a medal. That is sweet irony. Congratulations to Michael Phelps and to everybody. Hashtag this. We'll be back in a minute to close out the show. Don't go away. Before we close the show this week, I want everyone to think about how important everyone says this election is the most important of our lifetime. But think about the wars that are going on in the world in American foreign policy. Do you agree with the direction America's going? The odd thing is, President Obama remains very popular with people. He's got over a 50% approval rating, but nobody thinks America's moving in the right direction. The economy is stagnant. Not many people call this a great recovery, unless, of course, you're trying to win an election, and then everybody says it's fantastic. But no one is really touting how great this recovery has been. People are working harder for less money than they ever have before. This is the lowest recovery since the Depression. And now we're looking forward to another president. Who's going to be your choice? I understand the people that are saying this is a lesser of two evils election. My fear is that it's going to be a very low turnout. It will be the very passionate base for Donald Trump versus the very passionate base for Hillary Clinton. And a lot of Americans are just going to say, I'm sitting this one out. It's because it's been getting so ugly between the candidates. You know what Hillary's advice from people is? Shut up. Don't talk. Let Donald Trump talk. That seems to be what they're saying, is if we don't say anything and let the other person talk, the more that person talks, the less they're liked. And it's true. Every time Hillary Clinton speaks, they like her less. The same with Donald Trump. Make an educated choice on the election. We'll be back next Saturday. Have a great week, everyone. God bless.
Get more of Mike Broomhead on Facebook, Twitter, and of course weekday mornings from 6 to 10 on News Talk 550 KFYI.